Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bad Movie Review. Today I watched King Kong, the 1933 classic about a giant ape that is murdered by the love of a woman. Now, it's a tale as old as time, but RKO brings us the eighth wonder of the world, or Carl Denham's giant monster, if you will. And it really is the story of a giant ape. There's not a lot I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said. Blah. The movie is basically a classic, and if you haven't seen it, there's probably some reason why you're such a monster. You should go see this movie. I highly recommend it. It's been restored several times and reassembled into its original 100-minute version. Now, most recently, it was released in a 2-pack that I found in 2016 called the Kong Collection. It's got King Kong and the sequel Son of Kong. I'll deal with Son of Kong in the next episode, most likely. But this one does restore the original cut scenes. After its 1933 premiere, it got censored several times. The scene where a brontosaurus is mauling a crewman after he chases one up a tree. Kong undressing Andero and sniffing his fingers, which is kind of creepy. He's got some kind of weird human fetish. Kong biting and stepping on the natives. Those scenes were cut. Kong biting a couple of people in New York. And mistaking a sleeping woman for Andero, and then tossing her randomly to her death when he's like, "Oh, that's not my girl." So those scenes have been restored in most of the newer versions. There's a couple other minor quibbles people had with the movie, but overall, this is a very innovative movie. It has great editing, amazing pacing. It was very innovative and groundbreaking, especially in the fields of claymation. And it had great attention to detail overall. They made a very good effort to try and keep the animatronics, the claymation to match the matte scenes when they put it together. And remember, this was all before computer animation, so they had to do this all by hand and with matting because they didn't even have green screen, those primitives. It's a great representation of the era. It's got a lot of messaging in it. It is often interpreted as a critique of the film industry, and I could see where that argument comes from, but I think overall they were just trying to make a fun movie. Since it's been restored, most of the original, all the original scenes are back in the movie. So make sure you get the 100-minute version, because it does make a difference. It's not as good of a movie, I don't think, with those scenes cut. But because of some of those scenes, it may not be appropriate for modern youth. Children were a lot more hardcore and tough back in the day. So seeing a couple people getting munched by giant monsters wasn't as big of a deal. And modern audiences are a lot more hesitant, I guess I could say, to show their children such things. The movie opened in Thursday, March 2nd, 1933 in Radio City Music Hall in New York City. And the RKO Roxy across the street. The tickets were roughly 35 to 75 cents, depending on where you sat. And in its first 4 days, every single one of the 10 shows a day were sold out. That should tell you how popular this movie was. And if you look at the poster art and the advertising material, it's amazing. It had a real Art Deco feel in a lot of it, but it really hyped the movie. And in an age before the internet and before television, seeing those posters would have really piqued a lot of interest. Like, why is there a giant ape on this? So there's that. I think this really does belong in the top 100 movies of all time. Just because of its popularity and its innovation. Personally, I liked it because it wasn't boring. It tells a fun story about the movie maker Carl Denham trying to make a new movie. He has to meet some standards, so he finds Aunt Zero when she's trying to steal some fruit from a vendor. Remember, this was the Depression, so of course she agreed to take the job when he offered it to her, and they go on a whirlwind tour. One quibble that I hadn't noticed before, but they mention where the island is located in vague descriptions of between Java and Sumatra. That island would be mostly made up of Asian people in that case, like maybe Indian or like Thai people, maybe somewhere along those lines. But instead, it's a village of Africans, and a lot of people nowadays with modern sensibilities scream racism when they see the natives, and I can see where they're coming from, but I think that's more of a element of its time, and it's unfair to judge it in terms of modern racial sensitivities. And I don't think there were too many white guys in blackface in that crowd. I think it was mostly actual black actors, like Noble Johnson, who played the chief. So there is that. But yeah, the movie was a big hit back in its day. It made around $2 million in its initial run. Opening weekend was 90,000 rather. Oh yeah, my mistake. My notes say 650,000 in its first run. It was re-released in 38, 42, 46, 1952, and 1956. And Variety said they made about $4 million in domestic funds that year. So there is a lot to be said for the movie and its success over there. It's been remade several times, and by several I mean two, and spawned several sequels. We had King Kong 1933, Son of Kong, then the 1970s King Kong, then King Kong Lives, then there was King Kong vs. Godzilla. The more recent 2000 era King Kong with Jack Black, which I vaguely remember because I fell asleep during it, and the upcoming Kong Island, or Kong Skull Island, my mistake, with Sam Jackson. I'm just tripping over myself today. But if you haven't seen the original, I recommend seeing it before you go out and see the new Skull Island movie. There's a lot to be said for the history of the film and its breakthrough innovations with the claymation and just the historical nature of it. It really does capture the 30s pretty well when they do the New York shots, and it's just not even a boring movie. I thought they really hit the mark well. There's always something going on. It's a great action adventure film, and as a kid I loved it, and as an adult I respect what they were doing, and I still love it. It's a can't miss in my opinion. A lot of people will disagree with that, especially the people that want to scream, about something. They always find something to complain about. But yeah, the ending's a real downer, but what do you expect? You're a giant ape wandering around New York City. That ain't gonna abide. So yeah, I really didn't notice this before, but in a couple of the later re-release posters, you'll notice that the Empire State Building has the radio tower attached, and in 1933 it didn't actually have that. They only had the area where Kong was on, which was the dirigible port, which never really was used more than once or twice. So maybe he was waiting on a Zeppelin to come by and pick him and Anna up. I'm not sure, but there are a lot of interesting factoids about the movie that I highly recommend people check out on Wikipedia and Internet Movie Database that I'm not going to go into. I've rambled long enough. Go see this movie if you haven't. I picked up my copy on DVD in the Kong Collection 2-pack with Son of Kong. It was like $5 at Walmart, and I know it's on Amazon streaming video, so you should be able to find it there too. And it's on TV every now and then on the classic channels, like Turner Classic Movies. And with Halloween around the corner somewhere, it's probably going to be on at some point on one of the channels there, I would hope, because this is a fun film. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm just babbling now. But if you like what you heard, check out some of my other videos. I don't ramble as much in those. At least I hope not. And we'll catch you next time.